Hello friends, welcome back. Today we are going to continue with our second lesson 1.2, that is On Saying Please, written by Alfred George Gardner. We had completed first 3 paragraphs. Let us continue with our 4th paragraph. In last lecture we had seen that A.G. Gardner gives different examples, some humorous examples on why people behave mannerless. The first example was given about a liftman who threw away the passenger because he did not say "top please." Let us continue with our 4th paragraph, that is on page number 15. But though we are bound to endorse the verdict against the liftman, most people will have a certain sympathy with him. While it is true that there is no law that compels us to say please, there is a social practice much older and much more sacred than any law which enjoins us to be civil. Now, in this example of the liftman threw away the passenger out of the lift, and for that he was given punishment. Some penalty was charged on him, and he also says that some people might feel sympathy for the liftman, and even though there is no law that compels us to say please, but in a genuine matter you can use these manners to make somebody else feel better. Now, manners make life run smoothly. This is explained in the next lines. Please and thank you are the small change with which we pay our ways as social beings. They are the little courtesies by which we keep the machine of life oiled and running sweetly. That is, manners make life run smoothly. They put our intercourse upon the basis of a friendly cooperation and easy give and take, instead of on the basis of superiors dictating the inferiors. If there is a pledge to the superior, then always these manners, please, thank you, all these things are used. But if it is in case of inferiors, then these mannerism words are not at all included. See students, these are very small words actually, but they mean a lot to with whom you are conversing, with whom you are communicating. It is a very vulgar mind that would wish to command where he can have the service for asking, and have it with willingness and good feeling instead of resentment. Instead of getting angry, if you use these courtesies, these small words, it would make life smooth. I should like to feature in this connection my friend, the polite conductor. Polite conductor may not seem very appealable to you. Polite conductors are rare species actually. Now, A.G. Gardner, he explains or gives one example about the conductor. What happens? Many a times these conductors, they feel that all the passengers in the bus have just entered to trouble him. Any sort of trouble it might be, but he has the thinking that all the passengers have come to trouble him. By this discriminating title, I do not intend to suggest a rebuke. Rebuke means criticism to conductors generally. On the contrary, I am disposed to think that there are few classes of men who come through the ordeal. Ordeal means painful experience of a very trying calling better than bus conductors. Here and there you will meet an unpleasant specimen who regards the passengers as his natural enemies, as creatures whose chief purpose on the bus is to cheat him, and who can only be kept reasonably honest by a loud voice and an aggressive manner. According to some conductors, they think that if he talks aggressively or in a loud voice with the passengers, then passengers will not cheat him. That is the mindset of some conductors. But this type is rare, rarer than it used to be. I fancy the public owes much to the underground railway companies, which also runs the buses, for insisting on a certain standard of civility in its servants and taking care that standard is observed. In doing this, it is not only makes things pleasant for the travelling public, but performs an important social service. So in this paragraph, the example of a conductor who is always angry, who is always aggressive, he thinks that if he remains aggressive, if he talks in a loud voice with the passengers, only then they will behave, or they will not cheat him, they will get frightened. It is not therefore with any feeling or unfriendliness to conductors as a class that I pay a tribute to a particular member of that class. Now here he is confessing at the beginning of the paragraph itself that he is not at all unfriendly, or he is not at all pointing out to a particular type of class. I first became conscious of his existence one day when I jumped onto a bus and found that I had left home without any money in my pocket. Now, you must also have been through such experience. Here, the first hand experience of the narrator is given that once he boarded the bus without taking a single penny. He was penniless, he did not have money in his pocket, and he boarded the bus, and he realized only when the conductor asks for the ticket. Everyone has had the experience and knows the feeling, the mixed feeling. Just imagine what type of feeling would you have when you are without money traveling into a bus, without money, without ticket. It's a mixed type of feeling. You are annoyed because you look like a fool at the best and like a knave at the worst. A knave means dishonest person, Knave. It may be your first time, and it might be sincerely, honestly, you have forgotten the money, but you think that all the people around you might think about you as a knave, that is a dishonest person. You would not be at all surprised if the conductor eyed you coldly, as much as to say, yes, I know that stale old trick. This is the old trick. Don't fool me. Give me the money or else get out. This is the usual conversation between the passengers and the bus conductor. Now and then off you get, and even if the conductor is a good fellow and lets you down easily, you are faced with the necessity of going back and the inconvenience perhaps of missing your train or your engagement. Now he is also explaining that even if the conductor does not pay much attention that you have not brought the money, or maybe you will pay later, but still you have to face many problems, like you might have to miss your train, you might have to miss some important meeting or important function where you have to reach on time. This is quite possible, and at that time you keep on blaming yourself. And on top of that, the place where you are sitting, from there up till you get down, all the passengers will be looking at you as if you are a knave person, as if you are a dishonest person. Now coming towards our next paragraph. that in such a situation, having searched my pockets in vain for stray coppers, if you are in such a situation, the writer is giving his first-hand experience there, his personal experience, that even if he tells, he feels very guilty because he has forgotten money, he has forgotten coppers. Coppers means money. And if he tells with all the honesty, with all the honest face to the conductor, maybe sometimes the conductor may give you excuse. And if you say that I couldn't pay for the fare because I have forgotten my money and I must go back and bring the money, so I must get down here, the conductors might say, oh, you needn't get off, that's alright. Alright, said I, but I haven't a copper on me. Oh, I will book you through, he replied. There is a conversation, typical conversation between the passenger and the conductor. So the conductor is ready to allow him to go. Maybe he recognizes him, maybe he is a regular passenger, so he says that you need not get off. Now the conductor asks, where would you want to go? And he handled his bundle of tickets with the air of a man who was prepared to give me a ticket for anywhere from Bang to Hong Kong. He is ready to pay, or he is ready to give the ticket to that person, to the passenger, anywhere around. I said it was very kind of him and told him where I wanted to go. And as he gave me the ticket, I said, but where shall I send the fare? Oh, I will see, you will see me someday, alright. He said cheerfully. He turned to go. Now this is a small action, small deed of goodness, which will be again carried forward to somebody else. This good deed of the conductor is implanted into the passenger, and this passenger, when he goes anywhere around, he will pass on this good deed, or the happiness he will spread. And then luckily my fingers, still wandering in the corner of my pockets, lighted on a shilling and the account was squared. Squared means settled. Suddenly he found some shilling money in his pocket, and then he paid for the ticket. But that fact did not lessen the glow of pleasure which so good-natured an action had given me. A few days after, my most sensitive toe was trampled on rather heavily as I sat reading on the top of a bus. Now, this is another incident which the narrator, A.G. Gardner, writer, he explains that once when he was traveling in the bus, his most sensitive toe, usually some people have sensitive toes, it was trampled, means somebody had stepped on his foot. And I looked up with some anger and some agony and saw my friend of the cheerful countenance. The person who had done this, who had stamped his feet, he looked at him cheerfully and he told, sorry sir, I know these are heavy boots. Got them because my own feet get trod on so much, and now I am treading on other people's. Hope I didn't hurt you, sir. Now this is so genuine appeal that even if the writer was hurt, even if he was in pain, he tried to show that he was not at all in a pain. He told, no, that's okay, I am not at all hurt. He had hurt me, but he was so nice about it that I assured him he didn't.
Let us stop here and we will continue the remaining part in our next lecture. Thank you.